Ashley Jones from Marketing Showcase, and thank you for checking into our on-demand section to watch one of the recordings from January's online event. For this webinar, I was joined by Will Roberts, MD of WebBox, as he taught us how to write the perfect website brief that your agency will love. It's a really good talk, lots to take away from this one, so I hope you enjoy it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for everyone dialing in this morning. I really appreciate you taking the time out to listen to this webinar. I guess people can see my screen at the minute. If you can't, just drop a message into the notes, but hopefully you can see the first slide. So we're going to talk today about how to write the ultimate website brief that your agency will love. So hopefully it's a topic which is of interest to you, and hopefully you can take some value from it today. So just so you know, we're recording the session, so we'll release the recording and slide deck to you later on. If you could stay muted throughout the kind of next 20 minutes or so, just whilst I deliver the webinar, and then we'll get some questions at the end. Please submit those via the Q&A section. And then just wanted to kind of give a little caveat as we begin. And that caveat is the fact that I'm going to be covering this topic broadly. So I appreciate that there's going to be lots of different companies and organizations represented here, and you'll work in very different ways. So hopefully there's something for everyone here this morning. So what am I going to talk about? I'm going to go through the why, who, and how. I'm going to look at the elements which should make up your website brief, and specifically how that should actually kind of help agencies to self-qualify themselves. This is something which is often missed in a brief. And then obviously there'll be a chance for Q&A. So who am I? I'm Will. I'm the founder and MD of WebBox. We're a digital agency. And what I've done over the last 12 years is helped organizations, anything from a startup through to FTSE 100 organizations, help them define their brief, their requirements, and work with them to build a specification to deliver a successful web project. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Please feel free to do that. So let's get into it. Why write a brief? So I'm going to go through this quickly because I want to get to the kind of meat of the talk as quickly as I can. So it's really important to do that, to outline your requirements. And really what I always suggest is we stay away from being too touchy-feely and be quite pragmatic with the requirements that you need for this web project. It also helps avoiding misunderstanding. So you won't get yourself in a situation where halfway through the project, you thought they were delivering something and they thought that was inside or outside of the scope. It just helps avoid those complications. It also attracts the interest of the top agencies. Look, all top agencies will want to see a brief as they start a project or even work with you to help define that. So it helps elevate you to some of the best agencies out there. It also helps the agencies self-qualify themselves. So if your requirements are not a perfect fit for their skill set, then it allows them to opt out and allow you to contact other agencies which might be more suitable for that project. And look, let's not pull the wool over anyone's eyes. It's also a great opportunity for you as the kind of company side, the buyer side, to gain ideas from experienced agencies as well. So who should actually write this document? I'm a big believer it should probably not be a procurement department because they might not know the ins and outs. And I won't go into a story, but talk to me another time about that if you want to. But look, it should probably be the project sponsor or project manager or whoever's going to be directly involved in that project. What you want to do is make sure that the team who are working on the project have got their requirements down on paper at day one. And importantly, to get the buy-in as well from your senior leadership team so that they know what's being defined from day one as well. Okay, so the last bit of this section is how to position this document. So ultimately, we want to get in front of the best possible agencies. So we want to make sure that they can read the document and qualify themselves, okay? So ultimately, what we need to do is make sure that we're really clear within the document as to what we're looking for if you need specific skill sets. So for example, you might be saying we're looking for an agency who has delivered websites in a particular sector time and time again, or we're looking for an agency who works specifically with PHP and the Symfony or Laravel framework, or we're looking for an agency that works with WordPress. Whatever that requirement is, it's really important to put that into the document so that the agency can self-qualify themselves. Also allow them to qualify themselves on things like timescale and budget and other things. So if you need this project by the 1st of March, let them know, because if they're fully booked and they can't fit it in, then obviously they're going to need to say sorry and have that kind of conversation with you, okay? And then finally, just don't restrict the agency too much. Encourage some creativity in this process to allow them to feed their ideas into this process, okay? So let's go on to the next slide. Hopefully that's showing for you now. And we're going to get into the actual elements that you need to include in this brief. Okay, so I'm going to go through these fairly briefly. And obviously, if you want to talk to me in detail after, then please feel free to do that. So start with a bit of an introduction about the company. So who you are, share your values, what makes you unique. It's really important to share this kind of information because you've got to assume that the agency knows nothing about you. And really you want to start the relationship off on a really good foot, okay? So try and make that quite creative if you can, and try and avoid just copying the text which is already on your website. Try and write something which is unique for this brief. Tell us a little bit about your target audience as well. So a website can't be all things to all men. So by defining your target audience, it will help agencies to consider how best to position the website and consider its user experience for that particular audience. So your website might also have multiple audiences. So this is really important for an agency to be aware of from day one, because that will directly impact the kind of solution which they might be suggesting, and it definitely will impact the user experience. So talk to us a little bit about what your key markets are and your key services, and kind of talk to us just generally about what you do and how you need to get in front of that audience, because ultimately then it allows the agency to put forward the best solution to achieve that goal. It's important to share with us your current website. Some larger groups will have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 websites. So be specific in terms of which website this project relates to. Talk to us a little bit about what the pain points are as well. What is really difficult with the website? What is not working? Now that might be aesthetic. It might just be a design which is out of date. But actually, it might be that it's functionally not working that well for you. So, for example, maybe it doesn't integrate with your Salesforce CRM, and therefore that's something which is causing you lots of manual processes internally. So, yeah, definitely share that with us. Share the pain points, because ultimately the agency will then want to suggest a solution which solves those pain points for you. And then also, any websites that you like, talk to us about specific elements that you like of them. So on your current website, you might actually say, do you know what, we're really happy with how we lay out our testimonials. So that's really good. Just that bit of information is helpful for this process. Also in the brief, include your objectives. So ultimately, what are you trying to achieve by having this project delivered? And then also talk about how you're going to measure success internally. Now, this is definitely a part of the brief where you should really be pragmatic. So you might say we're looking to reduce our data entry time by 10%, or reduce the bounce rate by 5%, or increase sales and inquiries by 5%. Whatever that might be, it's really important to kind of put that down in a number and be quite factual about it, because ultimately then the agency will need to look at your current level of inquiries or current bounce rate, and then look at how they can achieve that goal, and also to see if it's realistic. So this will definitely allow the agency to demonstrate their creativity by thinking outside of the box. So this is a really important part of the brief. The next part is where it gets into what might some might think is a bit more mundane, but I love it, I'll be honest. So it's the actual features that the website needs to have. Okay, so what does it have? What does it do? How does it function? These are the kind of things which we need to know. And again, this is another area where you need to be quite pragmatic about it. So, for example, you might have a website which sells products, an e-commerce website. So you might need to say, right, we need our products categorized into product categories, as well as manufacturer categories, as well as supplier categories, whatever it might be. These are things we need to know within this brief. You also, if it's e-commerce, you might need to say we accept payments via Stripe and PayPal, and we offer free shipping over £100. These are the kind of things which would enter this section of the brief, just to kind of tell the agency what the website needs to do. If your website, maybe to give another example, is a B2B website and you're all about lead gen, then ultimately, you might be saying that the website needs to integrate with Salesforce. You need to have a request a callback form on it. It needs to demonstrate case studies. And again, these are the kind of features we'd expect to be included within this section. The next part is integrations. So we often prefer a separate section for integrations where you will talk to us about what the website needs to integrate with. So for example, that could be anything from the basics like Google Analytics, all the way through to integrations with a bespoke, maybe an intranet or something through an API. Wherever it is, it's best just to list those. And if you can, provide the API documentation as well alongside your brief. Also talk to us about automation. So, does the website need to automate anything? If you're thinking about reducing internal processes and workloads, then what can the website take off your plate? So that might be automating shipping labels or kind of order status updates, integrations with couriers, whatever that might be. Just talk to us about automation if that's a requirement. And of course, the agency will listen to that. The next part of a good brief is to talk about content. So, what pages are required on the website, and do you provide the content yourself, or are you looking for the agency to write the content for you? So hopefully that's a simple one for you to include. The next element is the timeline. So when does the website need to be live by? And also, is there anything which impacts that date? So for example, you might have a PR activity going on, social media content, emailers going out at the same time. So just make sure you share that with us so that we know that the date cannot be moved, or talk to us about whether the date can be moved and if you are flexible. So it's really good to share that. Okay, this is the time to put your poker face on, because this is the part of the brief where everyone plays poker. So, an agency might say, what's the budget for the project? And the brand is saying, oh gosh, we're not sure, or we can't reveal that. So this is something I just want to address head on, okay? So we ask for that because an experienced agency will know what can be delivered within a particular budget. And this will likely dictate what is proposed for you. So for example, working with a higher budget allows us to spend more time on user experience design or a thorough digital marketing campaign. But if the budget is lower, we might need to reduce the scope of work so that we can deliver a product which is within your budget. So specifying a budget, a price range at least, however vague, is the best way to direct an agency. And also look at WebBox, one of our values is being brutally transparent. So for us, it's a really good way to start the working relationship by just being open and just sharing that budget with us or with an agency. Okay, next bit is who are your competitors? And you might be thinking to yourself, Will, why have you put this image up of two kids eating grapes? So I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And look, they deem themselves competitors. Anything one has, the other one wants, okay? So that's the relevance of the image. But look, competitors are really important for us to analyze and to see what they're doing. So it's really good if you could list some of the competitors and URLs within this brief. And coupled with that, what do you like about their website and why, and what you don't like about their website as well. So it's good to have this information. Okay, share with us who's going to be the main point of contact. Okay, so your project is going to be best delivered if this is not decision by committee. So if you can choose one or two people internally who will be the agency's point of contact, that will always be the best way to run a project. So again, just share that with us within this brief. Okay, talk to us about the process as well. Okay, so this is something which is really good to share right from day one. So how are you going to review the proposals that are submitted to you, and ultimately what are the key dates that an agency should work towards? So if there's not a date, then that's fine, but if there is, just share those with the agency and just make sure that it's really clear that the proposal needs to be returned by a particular date, and you're going to shortlist agencies by another date. Maybe there's going to be presentations on a particular date, and you want the project to commence on a particular date. These are the kind of things which just help from a planning point of view. So that's really helpful. And the final thing that I want you to include in your brief is this. What do you want agencies to come back to you with? Okay, so it's really simple, but something which is so often missed within website briefs that we look over. So do you want them just to come back with a written proposal? Does that need to be in a particular format? So some people might say it just needs to be, you know, a Word document, black text on a white background. Other people say you can be a bit more creative and deliver an online proposal or a PDF proposal. And also, do you want designs to be delivered to you? Do you need a Gantt chart to show the project plan? You know, do you need profiles of the team that are going to be working on the project? It's really good if we know that, just that the agency can come back to you with everything that you need, and it obviously doesn't waste time on your side then. So I'm just going to summarize with saying, look, this is quite a meaty document. Sometimes these documents kind of, you know, get up to kind of 10, 15, 20 pages. And sometimes it's a bit daunting in terms of where do you start? So do you need some help? If you do, I'm absolutely willing to help. And I say that in a no obligation kind of way. If you wanted to send a brief over just so I can look over it and make sure it's got all of these elements in, I'm happy to do that. And that's not a sales pitch, it's just a genuine offer of help. So you've got my email address there. Please feel free to do that. And then the next part is we're just going to throw a poll up. So if I can ask Ash to do that. So, you know, what we're kind of offering here today is a template. So I can share with you my template for writing the perfect website brief. I'm also happy to give you further advice and guidance on a kind of on writing a brief, and I'm happy to schedule a call with you to talk you through the principles of doing that. Or even you might have an upcoming web project and you think, actually, yeah, I wouldn't mind WebBox having a look over that. So there's some tick boxes on your screen. You can tick more than one. Please feel free to kind of click on that, and we'll kind of make sure that we get in touch with you afterwards. But I really would recommend at least the kind of templates, because I know it's been really invaluable for a lot of companies. So that's the end of my webinar. That's enough of me talking. Hopefully it's been really valuable and you've enjoyed it. So I'm now going to pass over to Ash, who will kind of guide the Q&A session.
Thanks very much, Will. That was awesome. Really great content in there. Look, we did have a couple more issues with slides, but they very quickly remedied themselves. But I did mirror in the chat that we'll make sure that everybody gets copies of the slides after the talk, just so they can see them. I mean, I was actually going to come and share the slides, but I must admit there was only a couple of words on them, and most of it was in your presenting, which was obviously very good and slick. So hopefully everyone enjoyed that. And Will, thank you very much for your time and taking us through that one. So whilst we have the poll up and running, I just wanted to spend the last couple of minutes going through some Q&As. So whilst we do that, if anyone does have any questions about websites, web projects, the brief itself, please just pop that in the Q&A and I'll get around to your call there. Will, can I just ask you to stop sharing your screen when we get into this, if that's all right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Thank you. So the first question that we had come in was actually regarding costs of a website. Have you got any data or stats, or in your experience, the average cost of a website, or is that a really tricky question to answer?
It's very difficult because, you know, all of this will depend on the requirements. You know, so, you know, being really open, you know, you can get websites from particular agencies for several £1,000s. There are also solutions out there and projects that we work on which are 6 figures. And it is totally dependent upon requirements and integrations and the approach that you want to take. But look, I think the important thing here is when it comes to cost is to understand two of the major ways that you go around this. You either go down the route of using off-the-shelf open source systems, which give you a bit of a leg up, save time, and obviously reduce cost. And then you might have that tailored to your requirements. Or the other way is you go down the route of having something which is far more bespoke and written and designed specifically for your organization. And obviously what comes with that is a much better end result, but for obvious reasons, it costs more. So I'd probably, the answer to the question is I've determined which route you want to go down. And I'm happy to kind of pick up that question as well afterwards, once you know which route you'd go down.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. We've had a brilliant question that's come in, and unfortunately they haven't put their name against it, otherwise I would have given them a round of applause, but I think this is a great one. So look, they've written, what is the best way to address an agency when you don't feel like your brief is being met?
Yeah, that's good. I'm assuming you're within the project.
Yeah,
So
I read it.
yeah, so if you're within the project, so the project's underway and you don't feel the brief is being met, I'm a big believer in communication. Okay, so don't let the agency, bury their head in the sand. I think it's worth arranging, a video call and get everyone around, the screens, and you need to refer the agency back to that brief to highlight your concerns. I think the worst thing is sometimes when people aren't maybe fully satisfied, and obviously that just kind of bubbles up and obviously at some point it's going to explode. It's not a good way to do it. So really for us, communication is a really kind of big part of a project. I shared one of our values earlier, but another value that we have here at WebBox is actually being collaboratively creative. And ultimately what that means is we're not spearheading down the road that we want to go down and not kind of working with our clients, but it's about making sure that between agency and brand, we work collectively together to fulfill the brief and more. So yeah, I think hopefully that kind of answers the question, but definitely would encourage some conversation.
There's a flip side to that though, Will. It's also, and this is the whole point of this presentation, you might write a really slapdash brief. I'm sure you get it as an agency and it covers the bare basics, but the person who submitted the brief or the customer is sitting there in their head thinking, well, I want this, I want this, I want this, but none of it's on the brief. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, then you're referring back to a brief that's way too light and you don't have a leg to stand on. Does that?
Yeah. Absolutely. I referenced this document might end up being, 10, 15, 20 pages. And that's why, because ultimately it needs the detail in it. Some people make an assumption that all websites have a particular feature. And they don't. And also some people make an assumption that their existing website has a feature, so the new one will too. You can't make those assumptions. This brief has to be thorough. And it's really important that either you write it and it's complete, or you work with an agency to help write it, because this is a really important document to make sure this project runs smoothly. So it's about putting the work up front so that the rest of the project is a far smoother process.
Yeah. And I've gone through in our business a sort of a software project recently, which has required us to look at multiple processes, and the website kind of currently being the center of many people's kind of businesses whilst their physical places are shut. It's actually just a good process to go through to understand more about what's happening. And there's bits that you never even thought about if you actually dive into what you require from a website. And that allows you to think, are these processes as efficient as possible? Or so I found anyway. So I've got some more questions that are coming in. They're coming in thick and fast now, actually. It's funny how you get going. We're building up some steam here. So Jean's talking about features of a website and whether you find that there's any common features that every website should have. I'm sure everyone's got their specific needs from a website, but is there something that comes up time and time again now, whether it be kind of, I don't know, e-commerce or something particularly prominent and common in websites nowadays?
Yeah, so it's a difficult one because obviously everyone's going to be very different, but I'll try and be succinct. Ultimately, two bits of advice. Flip the idea of someone contacting a business on its head. Rather than saying contact us, which puts the onus on the user to contact the business, flip it on its head and say request a callback. and allow the user to put their details in and the company calls them. Put the onus on the company, not the user, and you'll get a better conversion rate. Secondly, is put as much tracking in place as possible. This should be on every website, regardless of sector or type. Track, gather data so that you can then make informed decisions. And that's the best way to do. So just a quick tip, use Hotjar. It's a free tool which you can plug into a website, and it'll give you heat mapping, it'll record screens, you can do website feedback, loads of different things through it, and that will allow you to gather lots of data. So that tool is Hotjar, Hotjar.
I'm going to put it in the chat now. I've used that before. It's a really good one. So I've just mirrored that. Look, there's me being a good host. There's the link for that.
Nice one, Ash.
Okay, there's some more questions. Literally, we're not going to have time for many more of these, but I'll try and get them done as quick as possible, Will. So, and I'll obviously, if these don't get answered, I'll share them with you so you can follow up with them if they've left their name. From experience, requirements. Well, I'm going to read this one out because it's quite a long one. From experience, requirements develop or change as the project gains momentum. You see a design and realize it's not actually what you want. How do you go about dealing with this with your agency? We've had costs escalate as a result of this.
Yeah, so this is why most people are now looking at a website as a kind of digital product and not just something which can be delivered in one hit, and therefore it gets developed over time, even if it's within that first phase of a project. It's really important that you start looking at this in a different way. So rather than look at this as what we call waterfall, which is define a spec, deliver it, and end, you start thinking a bit more agile. So you have a scope of work and you work towards that, but it allows you to pivot throughout the project in order to be flexible. So we're working on a project at the moment, which we're doing in agile methodology. We've got a budget from the client as well as a contingency budget. And that is the best way to do it because ultimately you allow most flexibility. And this is not about the agency trying to get as much out of you as possible from a cost point of view. This is about flexibility and allowing you to pivot throughout the project.
Brilliant. Thanks, Will. Last one. We're going to end the question and answers here because we're at 10 o'clock. So we've got another webinar following this one fairly shortly. So let's round up here. Are there any features that you've seen or trends that you've seen that have kind of been stripped away from modern websites?
Oh, very good question. You know, I think from a feature point of view, there are a few, but it does relate to specific sectors. So, you know, things like live chat, for example, in my opinion, is starting to fizzle out in particular sectors, and I would, you know, stress that. Because it's just not working. It's not an effective way of communication. And those particular sectors are now moving towards chatbots to automate that process and be a little bit more intelligent. But this is really, you know, sector specific. I think one of the things which I guess I would kind of just summarize with is from the website's point of view, I personally would say the aesthetics design is something which should be your focus at the moment. So features aside, it's really important to keep the look and feel of that website up to date. People know these days if a website hasn't been touched for 2 years, and it will impact their first impression on your business straight away. All right, so just keep the design at the forefront. And yeah, if you want to contact me specifically about your sector and features, I'm more than happy to discuss that.
Mirror that on the design thing. I arrived at a website the other day and it must have been old because it had that kind of left-hand toolbar.
Yeah.
I swear, you know, remember they used to have like every page listed on the whole website in kind of a list on the left. And I was like, oh my God, is this like a 1999 website? Man. And the reflection it has on a business, you know, it's literally like walking into a messy shop, isn't it?
Absolutely right. Yeah. So it's really important. But yeah, feel free to contact me because this is really sector specific in my opinion. So we can chat about it again.
Cool. Will, thank you so much for your time. That was great. I really enjoyed that question and answer session. Hi everyone. Thanks for watching another recording from Marketing Showcase Online. I hope you enjoyed it. Just to let you know, we've got all of the recordings uploaded to our brand new YouTube channel. So go over there and check it out if you want some more great content. We run these events once every month, free of charge, so head over to our website to grab tickets for next month's event. I look forward to seeing you there.